This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, the Octorian Starseed, and today is January 13th, 2016. Hope everybody is having a great week so far. We're going to be joined by a very special guest talking about the Roswell incident, one of the most famous, if not the most famous incidents around the world involving a UFO crash, Roswell, Area 51. Many names have been given to this scenario, this investigative report, which is still ongoing to this day. We have an awesome webinar series happening this weekend from Friday till Sunday, a 3-day event. Check out Portal to Ascension. This is the world's largest online live disclosure event. There's going to be over 16 panelists joining together to talk about the information on ET existence, disclosure, Roswell, and many other topics of choice. It's going to be an amazing event. Again, the website is portaltoascension.com. Register today. Also want to give a shout out to starseedradio.com. You can always find the latest news and updates. We have a couple feeds up there, weather trackers. Always good to stay alert with what's happening around the world. Check out starseedradio.com. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us. Do what you can to get the word out. This year is a big year for all of us, 2016. Lots of exciting things are going to happen, a lot of us feel. So we want to stay connected and keep you connected with the latest news and updates. Also check out starseedtechnologies.com. We have some amazing new sustainable products everywhere from water, hydroponic, aquaponics, water recycling, power energy sources. We also have our shungite on there. If you haven't received your free piece, call us at toll-free 888-400-2328 anytime, 24/7. If someone doesn't pick up, please leave us your information, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Or fill out the form at starseedtechnologies.com. One of the last sites, and the best one so far, is starseedgold.com. Check out Starseed Gold for this amazing new gold exchange and currency-backed system. This system is now being used in over 115 countries worldwide. I'm heavily involved in this myself and many others. This is a great avenue to go down to get the fiat dollar, the paper money, onto physical gold. And if people and listeners do not know where gold comes from, it comes from outer space. It's the remnants of a supernova. So it is ET itself in its origin. So check out starseedgold.com. Contact us as well if you have any questions at toll-free 888-400-2328. That's starseedgold.com. All right, we're going to get the show started here with our daily quote. Be mindful of your self-talk. It's a conversation with the universe. That quote by Dave James, I'll post it up on our Twitter feed and also on our Facebook page. I post all these quotes and all the articles we talk about, as well as the guest information, always up on the Facebook page and on our Twitter feed. So after the show, whenever you hear it, you can do your due diligence and check this stuff out. And pass them along to your friends and family. We want to get the word out. This is a big year. We definitely want disclosure to happen. We want the U.S. government to open their books. And now we're going to join and jump to our special guest, Don Schmidt. Donald R. Schmidt is the former co-director of the J. Allan Hynek Center for UFO Studies, where he served as Director of Special Investigations for 10 years. Prior to that, he was a special investigator for the late Dr. J. Allan and art director for the International UFO Reporter. Schmitt graduated from MATC with a degree in commercial art and graduate from cum laude from Concordia University with a degree in liberal arts. He is presently taking graduate courses in criminal justice. Schmitt is the author of dozens of articles about UFOs, as well as the co-author of 2 best-selling books, UFO Crash at Roswell from Avon 1991, and best-selling Witness to Roswell, New Page, New Jersey 2007, and The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell, published by M. Evans 1994. He is also the author of Roswell, the Chronological Pictorial from Moonset Entertainment Group. Don has also led an organization, the 3 only archaeological dig projects at the actual Roswell Crash debris field. They were conducted in 1989, 2002, and 2006. The second effort became the central theme of their highest-rated show up till that time in the 10-year history of the Sci Fi Channel, the Roswell Crash, Startling New Evidence, which also resulted in the book, The Roswell Dig Diaries, of which he was a contributing author. Schmitt is also an exciting university lecturer and internationally considered one of the best investigators in his field. He has spoken at hundreds of times in cities and countries around the globe. Most notably, he spoke at several different large publications. I'm not going to read them all, but we're talking the Oprah, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, and the list goes on, Sci-Fi Channel, BBC, a long list. So with that, welcome, Don. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Morning, Jonah. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you. I guess I'd like to start off, Don, with a little bit of your personal background and history, like I like to do with all my guests. Meaning you're one of the lead investigators around the world for the Roswell Crash, one of the most, if not the most famous UFO crash in our history. And I'd like to know, when did you first get involved with UFO investigation? Was this something that you were interested in as a kid or always looked at the stars? Did you have any of your own experience with seeing UFOs? Where did this whole journey begin for you, Don, with your interest in the UFO phenomenon?
I think, interestingly enough, it originated not with UFOs, but rather with the Kennedy assassination. And I often cite this example for the skeptics whenever they suggest that, well, with Roswell or any of these cases dealing with old memories with elderly people who one can no longer, trust their recall on such events. I would suggest that any one of us who were alive on November 22nd of 1963, no matter where we were, what we were doing, that is indelibly etched in our minds. We will forever remember precisely that day. The same would apply to 9/11. The same would apply to any profound event that we've experienced throughout the course of our own lives. So the same certainly could be said about these people who directly were involved back in 1947. So that being said, I stumbled across a book. I was a young boy, and it was just after the infamous Warren report had been released, their study on the Kennedy assassination. And all the words that were bandied about, such as whitewash and cover-up, in reference to the report. And I'm going through a bookstore, and I see this book. And on the very cover, it uses those very same words, whitewash, cover-up. And it was a book about UFOs. It was a book entitled Flying Saucers, Serious Business by the late Frank Edwards. And I, just out of curiosity, I had my parents purchase it for me, and I was hooked. I just, for people who are so transfixed as far as on events here on this planet, I was just totally drawn to the notion of being an astronaut and going to the moon and going to other planets and what it would be like to actually confront another being, someone else from out there, a higher intelligence. And for the life of me, I can't understand why everybody, with any type of intellect isn't interested in the very possibility that we may not be alone, that we may indeed, as far as have neighbors out, in our own galactic community. And so through high school and then college, and I went into investigative training with the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, and from there I started to actually be assigned field cases, and Dr. J. Allan Hynek happened to observe some of my case reports. And so I was invited back in the late 70s to meet with him at his office in Evanston, Illinois. He was professor emeritus of the astronomy department at Northwestern in Evanston. And he was impressed with my work, so impressed that he started to have me investigate cases as far as on his behalf. And one thing leading to another, and then I'm eventually, I was appointed director of special investigations, as you mentioned. And the one case that I wanted to go after, that I was a total skeptic on, I had even put out a statement back in the mid-'80s that I just could not believe that something as relevant, something as absolutely profound as the recovery of a crashed flying saucer and its crew could be kept secret for all those years. It was not possible. So I went into Roswell in 1989, fully expecting to spend a weekend down in New Mexico and being able to wrap this up, come up with something as conventional as the official weather balloon explanation as it stood at that time, or something just as prosaic. And here we are now, going on 27 years later, over 600 interviews with first, second, third-hand witnesses, over 30 documentaries, 5 best-selling books, the motion picture Roswell based on our first book, 4 archaeological digs, our next book coming out next month, and to say that I'm 99% convinced, starting at 0, I guess would be very indicative of just how important this case is. The fact that it would take a complete skeptic and cause them to do a full 180 as to accepting the not belief, but the very conviction that it did happen.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Don. Now, with all your interviews, hundreds of interviews, evidence, let's talk about some of the most pertinent evidence you've seen or testimony you've heard. What are some of the factual data, if you will, that you have seen within these 20-something years of investigating this, where you really took a leapfrog from 0 to 99%? Was there any particular piece of evidence you saw? Was there any certain interview that really made it real for you, or really jumped that level a big percentage over the years?
Certainly the descriptions, the eyewitness, the first-hand accounts of the wreckage, something that the skeptics, something that even the alternative theory of the month authors, as we often refer to them, who come up with these alternative explanations, they never address the physical evidence, the characteristics of the actual wreckage, the material. And that was the one thing that first caused me to pause and consider that I may be wrong, and not only may I be wrong, but that we need to revisit this. We need to see if there's a consistency. And therein lies, to me, one of the principal reasons, one of the more convincing, as it would be in a court of law, demonstrations of the very physical material involved. And when, for example, the very rancher, the late W.W. Mac Brazo, who first discovered the debris field on early morning July 3rd of 1947, when we met with his son, Bill, and wife Shirley for the first time in Carrizozo, New Mexico in February of 1989. And listen to both of them describe these microfilament type of silken strands of material that you could hold a lighter up to one end and the light would emit out the opposing end. Well, they were describing fiber optics back in 1947. Yet fiber optics wouldn't, come into vogue until around 1970. And they were describing paper-thin pieces of material that you couldn't bend or cut, you couldn't burn. It was practically weightless in your hand, but yet it was practically indestructible. And there were I-beam struts about the size of your pinky with this strange hieroglyphic-like, this Egyptian-like symbology. It wasn't anything that any of the witnesses or anyone else has seen since. And then the most amazing of all the wreckage was the same type of paper-thin material. It was foil-like, it was plastic-like. And yet none of the witnesses would say that it was either metal or plastic, but that it was paper-thin, and this particular material you could crease, you could wad up, you could crumble up into a ball. And each and every time you would release your grip or place it down onto a flat surface, it would unravel. It would unfold within your hand as far as the open hand. And like water would just flow, would just flatten out right over the palm of your hand. So we don't even have memory material of that description by today's standards. You still have to heat it or cool it down to get such an effect. This was right before your eyes. This was something that, just at that time amazed them beyond comprehension. And what's especially interesting about the Brazel family ordeal, was that even after the military cleanup, after 50 to 60 troops were assigned to conduct the cleanup operation of a debris field that covered about 3/4 of a mile long, and after heavy rains, Bill Brazel would still ride out through the ranch, and a few pieces would still wash up to the surface. And he gathered up piece after piece, and enough that he filled up a cigar box. And his wife Shirley would even describe to us how her husband would come home late in the afternoon from working the ranch through the day and sit down at the dinner table, and he'd always pull out this piece of material out of his leather chaps. And she would watch how he would try to cut on it and how he would hold his lighter up to it. And nothing he would do had any effect on it. And then he would always crease it and crumble it and fold it every which way. And she'd just watch with, just total awe as he would place it down and it would just smooth right out without any sign of any damage. Well, one particular night, Bill was in the nearest town of Corona. And he was playing pool, having a few drinks with some friends, and somebody brought this up. Bill, your dad got in a lot of trouble over that. The military, they were pretty hard on him, and they made him into quite a laughing stock. They made it seem as though all it was a weather balloon. Did you ever find any wreckage, any pieces yourself? To which he responded, well, yes, I found a few scraps, as he put it. And it was the biggest mistake he ever made, because who should be at his home the very next morning but a captain by the name of Emerson Armstrong from the Air Force and 3 non-commissioned officers. And Brazel was told by Armstrong, basically, we know what you have and you will give it to us. Well, back at that time, the military walked on water post-World War II, so of course he complied. He turned over all the wreckage, all the evidence he had. The point is, Jonah, is that this was 2 years after the incident. 2 years, they were still watching. They were still observing. They were still listening. And they were still concerned about the physical evidence, the actual wreckage, getting out. And so to me, that just further just drove home the point that if the military, if the government was so interested in the aftermath of these witnesses, in what they knew, in what they may have held back, what they may have had in their possession, then who was I, as a skeptic, thinking that, well, this could all be easily explained away, that these people were all lying, they all couldn't tell the difference between something extraordinary and a very off-the-shelf, very common weather balloon. It had us going back time and time again to the point, as I had mentioned, that we've now interviewed hundreds of these people, and they're all, every one of them, telling us the same story, that it did happen, that it is true.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Thank you for that story, Don. And that's one of the biggest way to really talk to somebody is face to face and resonate with their story. And I find that personally to be a lot more interesting than reading books and watching movies. So when you're verbally speaking and interviewing these hundreds of people, first-hand accounts like that, Don, you're getting that resonance of that person. You're getting that truth. And after hundreds and hundreds of interviews, even like through my radio show, I have definitely come to the realization and awakening on many different issues and topics. It seems just like you did with that story. So first-hand accounts are always, to me, the best form of information is coming from another person. And it's up to me to distinguish whether that person's lying or fabricating or whatever. But my body a lot of times responds in the resonance of what that person is telling me. And my gut instinct, is another way to put it, is always right. So I've learned as being a journalist, investigator, and radio show host myself to always want to talk to that person face to face and do interviews like you have done and getting compelling stories like you just told. So that's phenomenal. Now, where do you see, Don, the future of Roswell going? Are you getting close to this story, getting some more mainstream public attention? You've already been all over the world. You've been on Oprah. You've been written books. Do you see this story finally breaking one day and the government opening up and saying, yes, we found X, Y, and Z, or do you see that ever happening?
If there's one area that I still remain a skeptic, it's in the entire disclosure arena. And that is only due to the fact that I do not trust the government. They've demonstrated now for almost 70 years regarding this topic that they continue to drive more and more nails into the coffin, so to speak, for the fact that officially they are up to now 4 explanations regarding Roswell. The first was the very pronouncement on July 8th when the Roswell Army Airfield put out the press release that they had indeed captured a flying saucer. Within 5 hours, it was explained away as just a very conventional weather balloon device with a radar reflector kite. That explanation would stand for the next 30 years until the intelligence officer, Major Jesse Marcel, the 509 Bomb Group, who was stationed at Roswell at that time, stepped forward and described the wreckage as I just did, described handling it firsthand. They were the first ones sent out to investigate this crash. And every major news source at that time, this is back in 1978, refused to touch the story. The only publication that even gave Marcel the time of day was the National Enquirer. And that was at the time when they were indeed trying to accurately, legitimately present the UFO situation. I would give them that credit. It would be another 13 years that we had interviewed the late General Thomas DuBose, who was party to the weather balloon press conference. In fact, he acknowledged that they were the ones who switched the real material and substituted the weather balloon, the radar reflector kite, for the press conference at Carswell Army Airfield in Fort Worth, Texas. So here we had a brigadier general acknowledging that they were responsible for the hoax, the cover-up of the balloon at Roswell, and we could not interest a single member of the press. The lone reporter, the lone journalist was Billy Cox, who did up an article. We arranged for him to actually interview General DuBose for USA Today. And it didn't run nationally. It ran in the Palm Springs edition, in the D entertainment section of the paper. So it was treated very, contritely, very as far as lightly, as far as just being nothing more than entertainment. And so I've seen time and time again where every time we present someone of the highest quality for the press, they tend to either head to the high grass or they have their marching orders, and that's not to give any legitimacy to the story.
That's right. Well, your website is roswellinvestigator.com. Don Schmidt, thank you so much for all your work and what you've done so far on revealing.
Visualize an infinite hologram of unconditional love above your head. This is a holographic sphere with the flower of life pattern infinitely expanding inwardly to infinity.
The all-new Sacred Geometry Shop has arrived, featuring 8 of the world's most renowned sacred geometry and visionary artists. The mission of SGS is to embed sacred geometry art, frequencies, and equations into all conventional products in order to raise the vibration and help heal one's own individual life. Products include art, canvas prints, skateboards, Galaxy and iPhone cases, clothing, hats, jewelry, home decor, yoga mats, and a new sacred geometry skincare line. Enter the word STARSEED for an additional 25% discount. Log on today to sacredgeometryshop.com and feel the vibration.
The Coral Bay Domain is an exclusive community for people with an environmental consciousness and self-sustaining spirit. It will be the Caribbean's first totally green and off-the-grid residential development. This development showcases doing more with less and energy freedom. The community is located in Coral Bay on the island of St. John in the Virgin Islands. It will consist of 16 residential units in 8 duplexes. Each unit is a geodesic dome with electricity supplied by a vertical wind generator for each unit and a shared solar array. Please visit www.domain-llc.com for more information.
Portal to Ascension is bringing forth groundbreaking information and awareness from the world's top visionaries, scientists, speakers, authors, doctors, and spiritual leaders that are assisting humanity in unlocking their true consciousness. We explore and pioneer cutting-edge information from globally renowned leaders on conscious topics through our integrated multimedia platform for online and live events. These events are designed to empower and increase awareness for all of humanity, so we may collectively shift into a paradigm based on unity, transparency, and truth. We explore a wide variety of consciousness relating to self-empowerment, sacred sound and vibration, UFO disclosure, ET awareness, true ancient history, quantum mechanics, metaphysics, conscious living, and spirituality. Our online platform is designed to assist you in expanding and awakening your consciousness. The Portal to Ascension website can take you front row seat live to the educators, teachers, and wisdom keepers themselves. Log on now to www.portaltoascension.com.
Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes. Saturday on Truth Frequency Radio.
Hello, citizens of America. We are anonymous, and we have been observing as your country's leaders have lied to you and placed your freedom and your constitutional rights into jeopardy. We are very disappointed about this, and we have decided to take steps against what you are facing. The world is watching America. We are also watching. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
All right, welcome back to the show. You're listening to Star Seed Radio. Thank you, Don Schmidt, for coming on, the lead investigator, one of two lead investigators worldwide for the Roswell incident. Check out roswellinvestigator.com. Also, check out starseedradio.com for the latest news and updates. We're always posting up good articles. Stay informed. And also some cool trackers on there for space weather, volcanoes, earthquakes, things like that. Stay informed with what Mother Gaia, your planet, is doing. starseedradio.com. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Portal to Ascension. We've been talking about this huge online live webinar disclosure event happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend, put on by portaltoascension.org or .com. Check them out. Register today. We're going to be joined next by another amazing panelist who's going to be part of this largest online disclosure event ever happening, put on by Portal to Ascension. Now, this next guest is also involved in one of the most famous events, also talked about around the world. We're talking about the Phoenix Lights. We're going to be joined by Dr. Lynn Kitei. I hope I said her name correctly. And she is also an internationally acclaimed physician and health educator who pushed aside her successful medical career to pursue the Phoenix Lights book, an international award-winning documentary project. She was leading the cutting-edge era of early disease detection and prevention as chief clinical consultant of the Imaging Prevention Wellness Center at the world-renowned Arizona Heart Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, until coming forward after 7 years of anonymity as a key witness to the historic and still unexplained mass sighting throughout Arizona on March 13th, 1997. Dr. Lynn also graduated the Bachelor's of Science degree in Secondary Science Education with minors in Communication and Voice from Temple University in Philadelphia and a medical degree from Temple University School of Medicine in 1974. She's also completed postgraduate studies at the Medical College of Pennsylvania. Before her medical training, Dr. Lynn appeared in over 30 featured and starring roles in professional music comedies, including Alice in Wonderland with Sherman Hemsley, Oklahoma, starring Gordon McGraw, Guys and Dolls, starring Betty Grable, and understudied for Barbara Eden in The Sound of Music. Dr. Lynn has also been called the Woman Pioneer of Medical Communications and TV Guide after creating and producing innovative TV news health reports for NBC in Philadelphia in 1976. And her bio goes on with many great accomplishments. So we're very excited to have Dr. Lynn on the show today and talking about one of the most talked about events involving UFO and ET phenomenon. That's the Phoenix Lights. So with that, Dr. Lynn, thank you for joining us and welcome to Starseed Radio. How are you today?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill to be able to share the information. It took some time, as you mentioned, before I came forward, but now that I'm out there and I've done so much work, for so many years as a scientist, as a physician, to let people know that they're not alone and they're not crazy, although most anomalies can be explained, only a small percentage cannot. But just because we don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, it doesn't mean they're not real. So it's time we get this topic out in the open, address it, accept it, and study it so we can move forward and not only find out who's driving these things, but also move forward in our own evolution. And I'm so thrilled to be part of the Disclosure Online Summit this weekend to share the rest of the story, because that was one of the main reasons that I did come forward in 2004 after 7 years of anonymity and intense research after seeing these phenomena up close and personal and photographing them on 35 millimeter 2 years before the mass sighting, not knowing what this phenomena was, not having any background or interest in the topic at all, and then 2 years later, thousands of people saw what I had been seeing and documenting on film throughout the state, not only throughout Arizona, but most people, unless they read the book, The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone, which is in its third print, and I'm sharing even more dramatic evidence that I'll also be sharing in the webinar on Friday that I kept private for over a dozen years. Don't know that it was also seen these mile to 2 mile wide in some very credible reports on March 13th, 1997. We're coming up on the 19th anniversary, which is amazing. Saw these mile to 2 mile wide, either orbs, huge balls of light that seemed to be attached to something, but they couldn't quite see what it was attached to in a V formation, or actual craft. And if anybody's near their computer or they want to get on the Phoenix Lights Network website, which is packed with information, and go on the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project page, we'll also be talking about that, a 12-year compilation of thousands of reports. There was over 10,000 people that saw it in Arizona, as well as New Mexico, California, Nevada, and there were 8 or 9 different craft, and we'll be discussing the nuances of that, whether it was one craft that could morph into looking differently, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or a parade of different craft, which is ultimately what the investigators decided was what was happening, because there was so much going on at the same time, statewide and beyond. And it's amazing when you look at the illustrations that are beautifully done by Larry Lowe on the GAP page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, because they're very, very different. And actually one of these craft, and we'll talk about the rest of the story, which is so interesting how the story unfolded in and of itself, because there's so much mis and disinformation out there. There was actually one of these craft, these mile-wide craft, hovering right over central Phoenix during the mass sighting, and military jets were sent out to intercept it. As they got closer, the lights dimmed, and then it just totally blinked out. And we have a recorded interview that was taken by Peter Davenport at the National UFO Reporting Center by an alleged crewman from Luke Air Force Base that is very detailed, that talks about this. But we'll get into more detail. But anyway, thousands of people saw these phenomena literally over their heads. I mean, this is at rooftop level, glide very, very slowly, about 20, 30 miles an hour, totally silent. And this is while thousands of people were looking skyward for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, purposely looking up, when they also caught a glimpse of these anomalous phenomena, these gigantic phenomena that people just couldn't believe. I mean, they were just in awe. And by the way, and we'll talk about this too, it wasn't only the phenomena itself, the nuts and bolts, because some people saw craft and they actually described gunmetal underneath, windows, and even beings looking at them, very credible people from the windows. But even more than that, I mean, the technology was incredible. Some people saw these orbs, these balls of light, detach from the main object, go out into the environment, and then redock with it later. Other people saw it take off at blink speed. There's one mile-wide craft that's illustrated on the GAP page, GAP Animation, Geospatial Animation Project, on the Phoenix Lights Network page, that actually split in two and then shot straight up. I mean, the technology was incredible. But just as important as the technology, and maybe even more so, because we're still talking about it and it's become world known. I mean, not only known worldwide, but the Phoenix Lights mass sighting has been described as the most documented, the most witnessed, and the most important mass sighting in modern history, if not all history. And the most poignant thing for me personally, and I will be getting into this during my webinar on Friday, and actually I'll be speaking Friday morning, I guess it's 11:30 to 1 Pacific time, about how it affected people at a very, very deep level in real time and long term. If you want me to get into that, if we have time to talk about that today. But that in itself makes this just, balloons and helicopters and holograms and whatever don't do that. People were touched at such a deep level in real time and long term. It changed thousands of people's lives forever, and it's changing people's lives worldwide forever when they learn about it or even see similar phenomena and now look up in the sky and say, whoa, there's the Phoenix Lights, which is pretty cool.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you for that, Dr. Lynn. And I think, even with my perspective and understanding on UFOs and just the hundreds of people I've interviewed over the years, thousands, there's definitely something going on. And when I have done my research in terms of the history of the UFO phenomena, it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The ancients talked about it. There's hieroglyphics about it. There's ancient sites that are aligned perfectly to different star systems. There's a lot going on that more than meets the eye. But with what you're doing is really grounding out the evidence, grounding out the story, getting it very cut and dry, black and white, for the people that are still skeptical of this type of phenomenon. I myself have seen UFOs, and my experiences when I have seen UFOs have been a transformational experience, to say that. It physically had an effect on me, especially with one. I felt my whole body was shaking from the inside out, is the best way I can explain it. So I've myself have had interaction with different sightings, and that interaction definitely closed the gap in terms of wondering if we're alone in the universe, wondering what's going on out there, and not what we were taught in school, that we're the center of the whole universe and there's nothing else out there, and things like that. And most people are still under that impression. So what you're doing is really important work to really ground out the story and the factual data to explain to people that, hey, look at all this evidence, look at all the stories, not all these people are crazy, not all these people are lying. It's impossible for everyone to come up with the same story, the same pictures, the same feeling, like you said, and the same experience from seeing this stuff. It's not just seeing these things and lights in the sky. People have physical reactions to it, just like you're saying. People get visions, people get downloads like I did. People have real physical experiences just by visually seeing these crafts, and that's what I find so fascinating. And you just said that is just proof in the pudding. But hey, we can't tell that to people. People have to experience it themselves, or they have to read something that really seals the deal for them. And I think that's what you're doing with the work you're doing with the PhoenixLights.net, with the Gap. I was on the site. I saw the different videos you put together. Amazing, amazing stuff. It gives people a great visual, and visual is so important when you talk about UFO and this type of phenomenon. It's really hard for people to even imagine what a UFO will look like, or what something like this can be like. And what you've done is really put together some really great accounts and storyline and pictures and videos and graphs to really help bring in the visual aspect for so many people. One of my first questions is, Dr. Lynn, why did you wait 7 years so long to come forward? I know you have a big background in different studies, and you've done a lot of work in mainstream media and things like that. Was it because of fear of people thinking you're crazy? Was it you just were maybe embarrassed of coming out? What was the underlying story of why you did hold back for so long?
Well, first of all, you hit the nail on the head with the data, because that was one of the main reasons I did come forward, because there was such overwhelming data. And as you alluded to, and we're going to be talking about this in my webinar, is that there is a strong Native American connection to all of this. There are petroglyphs right here on the mountains that are identical to what people saw on March 13th, 1997, and even more. And I'll be getting into that aspect as well, as the fact that the video that I shot myself, and there were only a handful of videos that night, of the three endpoints of a mile-wide V or triangle craft was actually aligned with the Orion constellation. We're going to get into that. I mean, there's just so many fascinating things.
Oh, wow.
Is it
awesome.
coincidence or is it a connection? I mean, I leave it up to the audience. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. The data speaks for itself. And going back to your question, after seeing something up close and personal, and one of the other things we're going to get into, and I just want to squeeze that in here, is not only how it affected people, but also I found, and I did a study on the connection between all unexplained phenomena, because a number of people had near-death experiences that were reawakened by the mass sighting, and I did too. And I get into that in the book, and it was a 750-page journal, because what happened was that after seeing this up close and personal and getting 35-millimeter photographs in 1995, not knowing anything about this topic at all, I didn't even know who to show the pictures to. So I wondered what this advanced technology was doing right outside our bedroom window, and what we saw were 3 oval orbs in a pyramid formation. We're very high mountainside in Paradise Valley, and we're in a gated community. There's no way it was military. We're nestled in the mountains, and here a little below us, actually, we're about 50 feet off the ground, were 3 amber orbs, and I watched each one experience itself, and I'll get into more detail during the webinar, was just mind-boggling, a mind-boggling experience. But I did capture pictures, which is the only reason I can talk to you right now, is because I do have the hard data, which ultimately, 2 years later, I also saw these lights for the first time since 95, 2 months before the mass sighting. And I'm going to be sharing those pictures and get into the story, but I caught the same phenomena that I would also get on video during the mass sighting head on, turning into a V shape, 6 pictures in a row, 2 months before the mass sighting, and it was so unnerving that I called around, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport that saw the same thing at the same time, and they admitted very freely initially that they didn't show up on radar. They were very alarmed, because anybody that gets into this Class B restricted 30-mile radius around the center of the airport, especially 1,000 feet altitude, must call into the tower, and no one did. So they took their binoculars to look, and what they described was just amazing. I'll get into the details, and we kept in contact, and I continued photographing these things up until and including March 13th, also conversing with the air traffic controllers who saw the same thing that I was videotaping on March 13th in the same location over Class B restricted airspace. So there is so much more to this story that people aren't privy to unless they read my data. And that's just my own story, which I did not want to tell. I have to tell you. Once thousands of people saw what I had seen on March 13th, it really sent me into a tailspin, because it was like, whoa, something's going on here. And again, I'm a healthy skeptic. When you're a physician, one must be open to anything coming through the door. And even so, I have to see it to believe it. And I did see it. And I did get pictures of it. But here were thousands of people that saw similar phenomena on March 13th, and then I find out a week later, and that story in itself is really interesting, how this transpired, which I'll get into more detail on Friday. But all of a sudden I learn a week later that this is happening worldwide. I had no idea. I had no idea that that so many other countries had experienced these phenomena, and I started keeping an intricate journal of everything. And like you mentioned earlier, there is such a vast history of these phenomena. It's mind-boggling, and it really blew me away. And I just kept gathering any information that I could from the media, from witnesses, from the history, and lo and behold, 4 years later, after pushing my whole medical career aside for 4 years, and I did. I mean, from morning till evening, I just sat at the computer, which was new in those days, and read all I could read, and just was learning so much. And I end up with a 750-page journal of incredibly credible data. That as an educator, and you didn't mention at the top, in '85 I started my own company because I was seeing kids in the practice drowning in substance abuse, to wake them up to the reality of substance abuse And it was so successful that I continued with different topics, AIDS and teen pregnancy, and they're currently being distributed by Discovery Education. They've won all kinds of awards and stuff. So when this fell in my lap, and here I had a 750-page journal, what do? You know, of just incredible data as a scientist, as a physician, and as an educator. In good conscience, I couldn't stick it in a drawer. And that's why finally I had to go back to work to help put our younger son through medical school. He's a neurologist now. And while I edited down the best of what I found and came forward in 2004 with the Phoenix Light, the Skeptics discovery that we are not alone, and I was at the Arizona Heart Institute, at that time, and was approached by a number of filmmakers to do a film. And of course, you know, after producing video and workbook curriculums, I wanted to do it so badly, but I was working so hard, 7 to 7 at work, and then doing radio programs like this into the night, and then Borders and Barnes & Noble presentations on the weekend for the book. And a couple of parents saw me at Barnes & Noble, and they asked if I would present at their middle school, which was like, whoa, they're really going to let me in the door with this topic. There were 200 middle school students there in an auditorium. You could hear a pin drop. And it was the first time that I realized that they thirst for this knowledge. And not only that, but there is absolutely nothing in our history books about this topic. And that really alerted me to the fact that, whoa, you know, I've got to do something visually to really show people and have the people speak themselves, the witnesses, the experts. So we produced a documentary, won over a dozen international film festival awards. I hope people take a peek at it. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, is in it, as well as wonderful, amazing pilots and military and a 911 police operator. And the book is now in its third print. So when I finally did come forward, it really took over my life. And it's been an adventure and an amazing journey ever since.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lynn, for stepping forward and taking that leap out into the open, because a lot of people do have a fear about this and being called crazy and things like that. I've seen that and I've experienced that myself. So
no, you're so right. I mean, I have to tell you, everybody else, and I'll get into the story with the councilwoman Frances Barwood, who innocently asked for an investigation in May, months later, and she was plastered by the media. I mean, it wasn't pretty what happened to people that were coming forward. So I was very happy to stay anonymous for 7 years, do my homework, and then, you know, and also have my data analyzed by university and military optical experts that, you know, over and over again I was hearing they didn't know what it was. Nobody could give me an answer. And then I find out that the same phenomena are appearing worldwide, and other countries are much more open to these phenomena as being unearthly. I've never said what these are, only that they are.
Excellent. Wow. And this investigation, I'm sure, is going to continue until hopefully mainstream media picks this up and really opens it up. We're all pushing for disclosure. We all know that there definitely is something going on out there. And I remember when I was in middle school, it's funny you brought that story up, because as you're explaining this, I remember the last day of middle school in 5th grade. I was graduating middle school, and we got to ask the teacher questions. And I don't know if it was me or someone else asked the teacher a question about something regarding UFOs. And I remember he sat down on his desk, took off his glasses, and told us this story about him and his wife that were on the beach one night, and they were just hanging out together, and all of a sudden they saw this big, huge, what they said was a few mile long craft move from one side of the sky to the other. And he told this story, and just like you said, the class was silent, not even a pin drop, because this was the first time me and probably all of us had heard anything about a UFO or a craft, and we walked out of there and everyone was sort of stunned, like, whoa. But, you know, I credit him for doing that, because he was really speaking some truth, and speaking truth is what you're doing, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what Neil is doing with Portal to Ascension, and the rest of us. Is it's time for all of us to wake up, get out there, and speak our truth. There's plenty of evidence just globally supporting that, yes, there's something going on here, and yes, we want to know more about it. So the work you've done and continue to do is definitely applauded, and thank you so much for stepping forward and putting some real, visual aspects to this, because visually is so much easier for people to grasp and understand and really, get a feel on. So this is very exciting. We really look forward to the webinar Friday, Saturday, Sunday, world's largest online disclosure event. And your website is thephoenixlight.net. Are there any other sites you want to give out, Dr. Lynn, or any upcoming projects or books you want to mention?
Absolutely. Well, right now I'm actually working on a curriculum for kids. That's my passion, and from 4th to 12th grade. And I'll talk more about that during the webinar, but it's really groundbreaking. As I said, there is nothing out there like this, and the data speaks for itself. I mean, if you can get it out there in a credible and professional and non-threatening way, which we've tried to do with the Phoenix Lights Network, people can decide for themselves. Everybody comes from a different background, from a different upbringing, from a different belief system. Some people can't deal with this topic, and that's okay. That's okay. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. Everyone in their own time. But the information is there, and yes, the Phoenix Lights Network, if you Google Phoenix Lights, it usually comes up first. Please check it out. It's packed with information. Phoenix Lights Network Facebook page also. I put updates as quickly as I can. In fact, we just posted a new analysis of the boomerang video, which has really come under fire for being flares. Mine's the only one that was analyzed and confirmed as a true unknown, but that one really got some flack, and now because of technology, we've come a long way, and someone took it upon themselves to analyze that boomerang video, and it's really very telling. Plus, there's so much more to this story, because we went out trying to get into it, but I really
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Lynn, Portal to Ascension. Thank you, and we all look forward to this amazing event and all your work and service so far. So thank you so much, Dr. Lynn. We hope to speak to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. We'll see you on Friday. Thank you.
All right.